Another threat that President Obama mentioned was ISIS. Well, who on earth armed them? Who helped to arm the Syrians that were fighting against Assad? Who created the necessary political climate that facilitated this situation? Who pushed for the delivery of arms to the area? Do you really not understand as to who is fighting in Syria? And I noticed some of the discrepancies in the translation. And as we all know, mainstream media tends to manipulate the messages of foreign leaders when they speak. So I really wanted to get down to it and really take a listen and see if there were any manipulations that happened. So let's take a look.
It seems, however, that far from learning from others' mistakes, everyone just keeps repeating them.
So the start of this sentence may be a little bit confusing because we're missing the previous passage in which Putin talks about how in the past meddling in other countries' affairs has not led to any progress, but instead to destruction of that country. And he's saying how we're all different and we should respect each other instead of imposing our own ideology upon another country, because it obviously has not worked. And he's saying, hey, instead of learning from this tragic experience, we're continuing to repeat it.
I cannot help asking those who have caused this situation, do you realize now what you've done? But I'm afraid no one is going to answer that.
So I wanted to emphasize here that Putin is not asking a rhetorical question of, do you realize now what you have done? He's saying, now do you understand what a mess you have brought upon us? So just by this one sentence, you can see that a meaning can be slightly altered.
It is now obvious that the power vacuum created in some countries of the Middle East and North Africa led to the emergence of anarchy areas, which immediately started to be filled with extremists and terrorists. In these circumstances, it is hypocritical and irresponsible to make loud declarations about the threat of international terrorism while turning a blind eye to the channels of financing and supporting terrorists.
So at this point, New York Times conveniently cuts the clip, at which point Putin is starting to talk about who are the people who are comprising the ranks of this so-called Islamic State. And he points out that the invasion of Iraq in 2003 has led Iraqi servicemen to end up on the street. And now they have become part of this huge threat to the world. He also mentions Libya, who has been destroyed, and how Western countries have been a huge part of funding and supporting the Syrian rebels.